I think what we're doing for our agents is really leaning into them, right? Because I think if we don't, a lot of them are going to have some challenges in the fourth and first quarter as the market has changed.
So the question is this: how do most agents find the secrets to succeed in today's competitive real estate market, especially when the top agents are keeping those secrets to themselves? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. Hi, I'm Aaron Amuchastegui, and welcome to Real Estate Rockstars. Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Amuchastegui with a quick commercial break. But you guys have been hearing these ads. Follow Up Boss, right? They've been one of our longest standing sponsors of the podcast. And heck, most of you guys actually use Follow Up Boss. You've heard from so many of our interviews when we're asking people, what is your favorite CRM? Follow Up Boss is by far the most trusted, picked CRM that we hear from people that we're interviewing. You know, follow up is huge. As an investor, there are so many times recently that we reached out one extra time to somebody that 2 months ago said they thought about selling us the house. And by just following up again, they said, yes, I'm ready to sell today. And they didn't know us from anybody. They were going to say yes to the next person that reached out. And it was the fourth or the fifth time that we reached out to them. So follow-up is important as an agent, as an investor, as everything. You know, Follow Up Boss gets you and your team totally organized. Contacts, leads, all in one place. They have like 250 integrations to all the other things out there for like texting, phones, voicemails, all the other products that are out there. It helps you convert leads to deals, and then you decide how you want to expand and exactly when that happens for your business. So tons of guests in here. Here's a couple of our guests saying what they like about Follow Up Boss.
I think Follow Up Boss gives you the most integrations that are simple, and it gives you the best ability to go and integrate large things into one single solitary platform.
It tracks everything that I need. I can customize it if I want. If I want to go smart list based, that's fine. If I want to go task based, it's fine. It just really helps me never drop a ball because it's so user friendly.
Also, before I forget, Follow Up Boss is hosting FubCon. Yes, FubCon 2022. It's an annual event hosted by Follow Up Boss, the leading CRM in the real estate industry. The 3-day event is packed with actionable tips, strategies that agents can use to double their listings, convert more buyers, and create systems that their agents love using. And right now, as the market gets tougher, a conference like this is exactly the thing you need. The keynote speakers are some of the most iconic agents in the business, and they're sure to inspire and motivate attendees. In addition to educational sessions, there will be plenty of networking opportunities with some of the industry's brightest real estate professionals. FubCon is a perfect opportunity to learn and take your business to the next level. I hope you check it out. Real Estate Rockstars. Hey, this is Aaron Amuchastegui. Today I am hosting a conversation with my good friend Nate Martinez. You know, as most of you listeners know, since May, I have had a lot of guest hosts helping me out on here. This is probably only my fourth or fifth interview I've done since May, since my hiatus of splitting time up in Fayetteville. But I was lucky enough to be hanging out with Nate about a week ago in Croatia. We were with a bunch of guys. We were on this yacht going up the Adriatic Sea, just having an awesome couple weeks of our life. And we were talking about real estate and talking about our book. And I said, Nate, I really need to get you on the podcast. So Nate, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I should say welcome back to the show, right? You said Pat interviewed you on here a long time ago.
Months ago.
I'm going to figure out what... Dude, this is crazy. Episode 74 was Nate Martinez. Episode 74 in August 13th, 2014, Pat interviewed Nate. We have over 1,000 episodes now, and Nate was in the first 74 episodes. So, Nate, you've been an agent for a long time. When did you become a real estate agent?
Yeah, we're on 36 years. Been loving it ever since.
Yeah. So, have you always been an agent out in Phoenix?
Yeah, always in Phoenix metropolitan area. Never switched markets.
Yeah, you actually did. We actually did some deals together a few years ago.
Yeah, back in the REO days. Yeah,
we did some REO stuff. I bought some pool stuff. I'm going to say that was probably around the time you were on the podcast first time.
Maybe.
We had met through GoBundance. I had some Phoenix deals, and you and your whole family out there got to help me out. So way back in many moons when you got into real estate out there, what made you want to get into real estate?
Funny story. There was a guy dating my sister-in-law, and he came by. She was living with us for a while, and he came by to pick her up in a brand new 280Z. This is going back. This is 1986. And the guy was dressed sharp. He had Oscar skin boots, nice Jordache jeans. He had the total package, if you will. And I asked him, what do you do? And he goes, I sell real estate. And I came from humble beginnings. And to see somebody like this so put together at a young age, the very next day, you know what I asked him? I go, how much money did you make in real estate? This was August. And again, you got to understand, it was 1986. He said he made $86,000 year to date. And I was like, wow. So the next day I opened up the paper, answered an ad for a real estate company, and kind of the rest is history from there. But that was my inspiration.
Yeah. I love those stories. It's funny when you think back. So 1986, not only was $86,000 a lot of money, but it was but what were interest rates back then? Remember?
They were probably around 12. Yeah, right around 12, if I remember right.
I remember when we had just started looking at real estate investing with my dad. He was talking to me in the late 90s, and he was explaining with interest rates being 7 to 8%, this is how you can do a quick calculation of what your monthly payment's going to be. And he was kind of like, if for every $100,000, it's going to be just multiply that by 7.5. So your payment's going to be $750 a month, but it was always based on that 7 or 8%. And now it's been flying. So you got into real estate way back then. You got it. I was flying with my kids maybe a month or two ago, and this guy comes up to me and he asks me, he goes, why would you, how do you justify your kids flying with you in first class? And I remember just kind of I was a little taken back by it. So I talked to him for a few minutes, and then his next questions were, what do you do for a living then? If that's okay, then what do you do for a living? And I said real estate, and who knows? Maybe he went and got his license. Maybe he's listening now to different stuff like that. So as you think back, you've been an agent for
36 years.
36 years. What are some things that you wish you would have known when you first got started, or that you think agents should know when they first get started now? That you didn't know then.
One of them is, our elders in GoBundance is probably a really good lesson. I was in the same spot with Dave and Pat when they first kind of connected on accountability. And those two guys, having an accountability partner is what I'm talking about. Those two guys went at it. My accountability partner was a lady happened to be sitting next to me in the same conference. And she kind of took it lightly, and I guess so did I. So whenever we see each other, we just ask each other how we're doing. And that was about as much as our accountability. Where, Dave and Pat's story, they kept each other accountable every single day for years. And both, pretty much retired from the real estate space and became serial entrepreneurs. I wish I would have had an accountability partner and took it serious early on. As far as other lessons along the way, I've always been into education since I got my license. I made it out of high school. I did 6 months of college. That was about all the education I had. Then I was in the construction field. So when I got into real estate, I started looking around, and there was really nobody there to train me. There was no podcast, right? And I went to a real estate training class, and I met a gentleman that the first class I ever went to became a lifelong mentor of mine, and really kind of opened up my eyes, Aaron. He represented to me what a father should be. He was older than me. I never had a dad. Never had a dad growing up. Never had anybody guiding me, if you will. And Howard was one of those guys that, even though he was guiding many people, I kind of latched onto him. And so a mentor would probably be a very important thing to look for in your real estate career. So Howard changed my life and, opened up my eyes to other like-minded people. I met Pat way back then through Howard, and we were involved in a group called Star Power, and both Pat and I, and that's where Dave met Pat, and it kind of all mushroomed from there. And Tim Rhodes too.
Heard that part of your story before. Like, I didn't realize that you guys were all hanging out at that same conference, because yes, that was a big moment in their lives where they met and they became, and it was like choosing an accountability partner. What a trip about life too, right? Like any little choice that you make at any time, you have no idea how profound the impact or not. Like, these little choices can become like picking the right partner, picking those different things. So when you tell people find an accountability partner and take it serious, I think most of our listeners have no idea what that means, right? So if you have an accountability partner and you're taking it serious, what would you do with that accountability partner? What does that really mean? If someone was going to go find somebody, what advice would you give them on how they should do that?
Well, I think you established some guidelines. Apparently we didn't establish guidelines with my accountability partner back in 1996. And we kind of just joked it off, right? And the speaker that was speaking at the time was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Fred Gross, who's also been on this show way back in the 70s, probably. And that was, I think, Pat and Dave's kind of mentor, I think, at that time. But I think Dave and Pat established guidelines on how they were going to keep each other accountable. And I think that'd be very important today, to really have some guidelines like we do in GoBundance. I mean, when you can have somebody call you out on your bullshit, hope I could say that, it's important, and, you can go through life and nobody ever call you out. Maybe your spouse would, but, having another person that has similar interest that you guys can communicate, and I think Dave and Pat text each other every single day, and probably back in the beeper days, and they kept in communication and they pushed each other to higher levels. And I think with GoBundance, our other tribe that we're involved in, we have accountability pods, if you will. So we have a group of men that come together on a weekly basis, and there's always somebody there. Sometimes we, what am I trying to think here? Maybe we don't believe in a concept, or maybe we say we want to do something. It's like, right away it's, okay, when are you going to do that by? How do you want us to hold you accountable? And, I think something along those lines, and you could probably add to that, Aaron, you've been in the same type of groups as well.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I like about accountability, and especially we just had 2 weeks together in a big group. And so some things that happens is somebody says, hey, this is a goal of mine. I don't want to do this anymore, and it would help me if you encouraged me not to. When I do like triathlons, right? Like, the reason I tell people I'm going to do it is because there's going to be plenty of moments I'm going to want to quit. But if I told a bunch of people I was going to do it, there's a much better chance that I'm not going to quit. There's a much better chance I'm going to go through with it because of that. Or when you're sharing your goals with somebody. So finding somebody out there. So if you're new in real estate, or you've been around in real estate for a long time, when I first joined my first mastermind, it was the first time I felt like I wasn't alone. Like, I could actually share with somebody else. And entrepreneurship and real estate and like being your own boss can be a very lonely road when you're doing it on your own. But if you can find at least one other person somewhere that you can have these conversations with, and you can say, hey, we're going to be honest with each other all the time. We're going to be able to share the wins. I don't want to have a big win where, hey, I made $100,000 on something and feel like I can't tell you. But if I also have a big loss and I feel like I really screwed up, I want to be able to tell you that too. And, I couldn't always have those conversations with other parents at my kids' school and things like that. So being able to have somebody you can have these honest, important conversations with. And I also think it's important, like, yes, somebody shares their goal and they say, hey, my goal is to make $50,000 a month. And we don't just say, hey, that's a cool goal, right on. We say, well, how are you going to do that? Is that realistic? What's your plan? And then next month we follow back up and say, so your plan was by this month you were going to do that. Did you? Are you really going to follow that goal of yours? And it's just amazing. And I go back to those triathlons as that example, or, when I tell somebody I'm going to do something, it increases the chance I'm going to do it. And if they remind me of it, it increases the chance I'm going to do it. And so I like to tell people as often as possible, this is my goal, this is my goal, this is my goal. And with those accountability partners, I think that's a good one. What was your business like last year out in Phoenix? So how many people are part of your team or your office? How much volume were you doing? We'll talk about like 2021 first, then we'll get into 2022 and kind of what might be changing.
Okay. Hey, before you get to that, I just want to share. I just came back from a coaching conference. So we get back from Croatia, spend a few days with the family. I go to Salt Lake for 3 days, and then I'm up here in Flagstaff, and I'll go back to Phoenix. But I was on a cab ride back after a coaching conference with another coach, and I started coaching this person on this little 15-minute cab ride, and they had a limiting belief. And I challenged her on this limiting belief, and I said, "When are you going to solve that by?" She goes, 30 days. And I said, "Okay, what's going to be the pain if you don't do it?" And she goes, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, it's election season." I said, "The party that you don't represent, why don't you send them a check for $5,000? The party that you despise, if you will." And she let me know who she despised. And I said, "You write a check for them on November 8th if you don't get this task done by November 3rd. And I think I motivated her, and I'm going to keep her accountable to that. So sometimes where you having accountability, it could be a one-off accountability with somebody And again, with her, I had to put some pain in it because I knew she probably wouldn't rise to the occasion. But what's my business been like? Last year was probably the best year in real estate. We grossed about $2.4 million in GCI. I have a team of 8. Our average price last year was $650,000, which was a couple $100,000 higher than the average for the Phoenix metropolitan area. We're actually in the Northwest Valley, Glendale, Peoria, Surprise. That's where I own real estate offices. And even though I own a real estate office, I run a team and operate a team. And I have my son that I'm grooming to manage the team. And he kind of manages the entire team except for his sister and his stepmother. And there's probably reasons for that, right?
Yeah, I bet there's reasons that might not work.
Yeah, so it's been a good ride, and over the last few years, I've been transitioning and taking more steps back and letting the team step forward. And probably for the first time in my 36-year career, the majority of the income that came back to me was driven by the team members, right? So, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I might have done 80, 90% of the production. And, each year I'm taking another step back and allowing the team to grow. As far as a real estate company, we have 130 agents. We have 3 locations, and that's pretty much ran by another group, 100% delegated out except for leadership meetings I have and, being visible within the company. I have a CEO, broker, CFO, all the parts that run the real estate company, as well as I'm a partner in a title company, and I own a mortgage franchise as well. So, but all those are ran independently. I mean, I think you commented when we were in Croatia, I wasn't dialed into work. It was relaxing, 2 weeks away, and I pretty much took advantage of that. And I felt good that my real estate team was running, the RE/MAX offices were running, the mortgage company was running, and the title always runs without me. So it was really nice to just be able to get away. And that's what, having a team is, right? It's to give you some freedom and some leverage.
I was so jealous in those moments when we were out there because different guys were talking about, how much they had to check in or didn't have to check in while we were on the other side of the world. And my business is, and 3 years ago, I was working, maybe an hour a day. And when we went to like Africa or Japan, I didn't have to work. My company and my teams, my businesses were doing everything. And a couple of years ago, I guess beginning of 2021, I saw kind of these big opportunities on the horizon. And I dove into like doing a lot of heavy work myself and like growing the team and hiring. And I found myself in Croatia going, I am having to call in and email in way too often right now. And it was remembering what it was like a few years ago when we went on some trips together where I didn't have to do that. And then seeing you now with your business that you've set up where you're like, I haven't talked to anybody in the office in a week. And that feels pretty good. And as I left, that was one of my new goals, to make sure that within the next couple months, I got back to being able to live life and run the businesses the way you do. With Maddie getting sick back in May, that helped inspire me and push me to start slowing down some of my businesses and to start pulling back from some of them. But even so, like without that, I can't even imagine. Without making that change, there's no way I could have done Croatia, because before Maddie got sick, I was definitely working way too much, because me after cutting way back, I'm still too much into that. And I bet there's a lot of agents out there going through that right now, and they're hearing you talk about that. And there's a lot of agents say like, hey, I want to start running a team, or I want to start running an office. And there's some excitement and some fear in that. And there's some fear that they have when they say, hey, if I stop doing the volume and my team starts doing the volume, what if they leave and go somewhere else? What if they don't do as good of a job? What if I make less money? And a lead comes in and they're having to choose between keeping it themselves or giving it to one of their team members. Talk about those first few years of doing that. Like, what advice would you have for them? What was that transition like? What made you do the transition? Like, what worked, what didn't? Just like a little crash course and in making that, because it's a scary thing. But when you talk about being in Croatia for 2 weeks, not taking a call and still making money, that's an exciting thing. But when you're first making that transition, there's so much confusion. I know a few people in particular that'll be listening to this.
Well, let's rewind 30 years. Okay. 30 years through Star Power, I started hearing about these great teams around the country, and that's where I started plugging into podcasts, but they were different, right? They were a cassette tape, and we get one a month, right? And it was interviewing a team or a team leader. And so that's kind of how I started to learn. But I think some lessons early on, and again, so I've been a team owner for 30 years. I've had a lot of people come through my team, and that's going to happen, right? That's just going to happen. And some of the first people that left my team, I was offended. I was like, how could they? I poured my life and soul into making you who you were, right? I didn't make them. I guided them. But I was upset in the beginning with a few people. And, but I started to learn, and then I started to watch, and then I started to understand what my gift was. And just like the gift Howard gave me back in 1986, when I went to that seminar about, learning and giving, right? He gave me a gift, and then I became the mentor to these people while they were on the team. And I have people today that have been on my team that own real estate companies in Phoenix, right? And one of them just had a birthday the other day. I reached out to wish him a happy birthday. And so I celebrate it now, because people will come, Aaron, and they will leave your team. Having those relationships, I remember when one of my guys was going to literally leave. He left my team, and the cool part was when people would leave my team, they would just stay with my real estate company. So it was a win-win. So I helped train a very good agent, or they were building the team under them. And then when they would leave the company, I was like, it was that loss again, right? Like when I lost somebody as a team member to a full agent, in the beginning I had sorrow. Then when I left somebody left that was an agent on my team that built a team that had the same dream I did, was to be a business owner and open his own business. At first it hurt, right? And it was like, and when you have a real estate company and you help build a team, and all of a sudden one day a team of 10 leave your organization, that doesn't feel good, right?
Yeah.
But again, with knowledge and wisdom, I guess, right? This gray hair. I haven't shaved since I went to Croatia. I look a little rough. I got one more week of vacation next week. And when he left, now I celebrate. I've been to his office. Now he's bought an office building. You know what I'm saying? And it makes you feel good to know that you were part of that organization's growth, right? And I think that's the gift that I've been given, because since I started in real estate, Aaron, I was in construction, and I got my license, and I was part-time. And just somehow it worked out for me. I sold like 30 houses my first year, where I was pouring concrete 40 to 60 hours a week. And I didn't have a mentor at that time. But I did. I found some guy and I modeled him. He was selling HUD and VA repossessed homes. And we'd get a list every Tuesday. And I met this guy at the copy machine at like 8 o'clock at night, because he had a real job, and he had a real estate license. So I met him at the copy machine, and we talked. And he goes, well, I have a full-time job, but this is what I do because these houses are all vacant, and every week there's an auction, and every week, it was cool because people had to act. And back then, Aaron, they paid a 6% co-broke to bring a buyer in for VA and FHA. So I did that for the first couple of years before I even quit my construction job. But, so going fast forward to today, I look at every opportunity to help someone grow their real estate business, right? I'm an open door. If somebody calls me up and says, hey, Nate, you have time for coffee? Yes. I will always make time for somebody to help them grow their business. I hope that answers the question about somebody.
I think it's a mindset. It's a mindset of like this, like you're investing into these people, and and I think when we first invest, we hope for money to come back. We hope that by spending money and time on somebody, that investment is going to pay dividends back to us. And sometimes it will, and sometimes it will, and sometimes it will, and it'll totally exceed. But I think one of the things that you said is sometimes you're going to invest in somebody and maybe it doesn't pay you back financially. But then when you get to see them, go live their life, you kind of get to be proud that you're part of their story and go like, hey, maybe I helped them and maybe I didn't get rich, but maybe they're going to have a better life. It is like this, this genuine, kind of human. It's changing the brokerage or team guide model, the thinking about dollars and cents, to saying it's about helping people. And truly, sometimes if they leave you, you still helped them, and being able to not get as frustrated about it. I think that's a cool spin to it. Like I said, I've had a lot of conversations with people lately that are thinking about growing or trying to grow or having these growing pains with it, and and feeling like agents aren't appreciating it and things like that. And it's just it's a battle. So let's talk about the market right now out in Phoenix. So it was back in May. You guys had 4,000 listings on the market in the greater Phoenix area. Now, Phoenix is giant. I lived in Phoenix for I think I've told you 6 months. I lived there for 6 months years ago. My sister still lives there. We visit there all the time. And when I lived out there, I was working in a UPS. I was loading UPS boxes box trucks from 10 at night to 4 in the morning. It was the most horrific job I've ever had. And we had to do it in the middle of the night because of how hot it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just this crazy, miserable time. But Phoenix is it's not just one little spot. You could drive for 4 hours, maybe not that, but you could, and never really see a city start or stop. It's just this big expanse. So the greater Phoenix area was 4,000 listings back in May, 4,000 something. And I just saw a stat that it's over 20,000 listings out there right now. And way back in 06, 07, 08, when the housing market first crashed, Phoenix, Arizona, Las Vegas, Sacramento, and LA, right? These kind of West Coast big cities were some of the first to get hit hard with housing crisis, with inventories to go up, with foreclosures and things like that. So inventory's gone way up out there. What's happening in the market? What are people feeling like? And what advice are you giving your agents? You've been through 5 cycles or so. And you've seen it all. What advice are you giving, and what's it feel like?
Well, it's interesting. Okay, so there's been two big cycles that I could probably relate to. So with years under your belt, you have to look back, right, for wisdom. So we opened up our real estate office on 9/11/2001. We were having our first meeting when people were crying, and I couldn't understand why the waitress was crying. I understood later that day. So and it was the first day I had 10 recruits coming over, and none of the 10 came because the business changed, right? And then the next thing came was the crash, right? I used to carry about 100 listings, sell about 300 houses a year. And all of a sudden, my business partner that owned the franchise with me, he wanted to get back into the REO stuff. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I did a little bit of that in the early 90s. Next thing you know, I had 0 inventory, and he had 100 listings, and they were all bank owned. And so I actually helped Pat get a Freddie Mac account, because I had the Freddie Mac connection. later on. So I built a business based on the market. You have to adapt. So then the pandemic hit. When the pandemic hit, my mind went back to 2007, 2008, and what happened. And I saw a lot of real estate companies go out of business, a lot of realtors go out of business. And I started thinking that's what was going to happen in the pandemic. The opposite happened, right? We got busy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
The market went crazy. We were selling houses. I couldn't even believe it, Aaron. All of a sudden, we put a house up for sale, and it would sell for $100,000 over list. In the 35 years prior, never anything like that. Maybe 5, 10, 15,000 or something. And the California and the Washington buyers were coming in because they were experiencing that, and they experienced it before we did. Okay. So we had to learn, and we created systems on how to handle getting 30 offers in a weekend on a listing. Just like we had, and I had that history back in the REO days, because we used to get like 30 offers on a listing back then. So those systems were easy to build. Then it changed, right? And it was actually March was actually when we were at the low point of 4,400 active listings, and then it slowly just started to change. And that's as interest rates were going up. Some of the big investors that were pulling out, like Blackstone and different, investors that were buying houses sight unseen, started to slow their purchase. And I think once the big investors started to pull out of Phoenix, that's when things started to change. With interest rates climbing, it almost came to a standstill. I mean, we were still selling 6,000 homes a month, but it wasn't 9,000 to 10,000 homes a month. And what we've noticed, there was almost this feeling like we were starting to the pandemic, the fear. Nobody knew what was going on with the pandemic, and we started kind of freaking out a little bit. We're starting to see that. We've seen that for the last 3 months in the Phoenix market, where everybody's kind of panicking. We've taken deep breath. I think what we're doing today is we're really focusing in on the fundamental basics, right? We're trying to change language on how to communicate. Because if you were a buyer, Aaron, a first-time buyer, second-time buyer, and you bought a house in December, the rates were 3% or under.
Yeah.
Fast forward today, we're talking 7%, just like your dad was talking to you years ago.
It's like half the house.
And I believe the number is that 3/4 of the realtors in America have never seen rates above 5%. Think about that. We haven't had 5% money since 2008, I believe it is. So there's a shift. What we're doing in our firm, and I had to look at it and I go, some of our agents are fairly young. They have never seen anything but an escalating market. So I decided to create some pods, just like we do in Go Abundance. And I'm actually going to lead those pods. This is where I'm kind of leaning back into the RE/MAX offices again, more for my leadership and training and coaching. I've taken pods. We went from 6. I think I'm going to move it to 8. I don't know if it was you that on the boat. Somebody told me about a book called Sticky Church.
Somebody else mentioned it. So I wasn't the one that first read it, but I started looking at it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I read that.
I was the one that told us about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they kind of use it in Go Abundance, right? So I listened on the way up here from Phoenix to Flag this morning. And they talk about, in church, they do small groups, right? And they said usually 8 couples is a good group. Less than that's, you miss somebody, it kind of messes the grouping up a little bit. So I was going to do groups of 6. Now, after listening to this book, I'm going to move it up to 8. But I'm going to mentor every Monday. I'm going to spend a half an hour with these different pods, just kind of more of an accountability pod, and teaching and sharing accountability with them, because we need to get back to the basic fundamentals, and you and I talked a little bit about the book that Sarah and I wrote, that we launched it last year in a time when the market was just on a frenzy. Nobody needed to stop and read a book. You didn't have time to do anything but, run your buyer around or look at offers. So with that, I thought we'll go back to the principles of the book we wrote, very, very basic. and let's start implementing that into our agents, into the company. And so that's, I think, what we're doing for our agents is really leaning into them, right? Because I think if we don't, a lot of them are going to have some challenges in the fourth and first quarter as the market has changed.
Yeah. I think the advice right now of getting back to the basics and the fundamentals is great advice for everyone in real estate out there. I mean, if 75% of agents haven't seen rates above 5%, that means 75% of agents really have only seen an increasing market, right? They've only ever seen it to where, 2-3 months of inventory max was out there, and overall there was always going to be a buyer or a seller for a house. And if a house stayed on the market longer than 30 days, something was just really, really wrong. And the bummer about a 3, 4, 5 month inventory market is you could have a perfect house at a perfect price, and it might take 3 or 4 months to get the offer, right? Like, and you're trying to not be scared, and you're trying to not be nervous. But part of those fundamentals are like going back and actually like doing the hard work that agents need to be doing. We have a listing in Northern Austin. It's a very unique listing. It's on some acreage. It's a smaller house on some acreage. It's by this private airport. It's in this really expensive area, but it's just this like really unique product where it's really only perfect for like a dozen families. And so now anybody that actually sees the house, I'm having to remind our listing agent on that they need to get really, really active. If somebody's asked us for the disclosures and they've asked us for extra information and then they drop off, it's about telling the agent, like, no, call them back now and seeing like, what is stopping them from buying this home? Right. So because they're one of only a few people that this was a good neighborhood, good house, good because it is such a unique product. I said, so you need to call them and see whatever is the thing that's stopping them. We'll find a way to solve it, but you got to have the conversation and go, why aren't you buying this thing now? Is it affordability? Is it interest rates? Can we buy down the rates? Is it they don't like the kitchen? Can we build them a new kitchen? I mean, it is a buyer's market right now, and it's like, do we need to build them a new kitchen? Do they need different color appliances? Do they not like the granite that we put in? What is it? And what can we do to actually get this deal done? And that's hard work. Like the fundamentals of being an agent is actually really, really hard work. And I've heard a lot of agents in the Phoenix area recently talking about these, sellers offering bought down rates, offering this like 2-1, where it's actually like a 2.5% loan for the first year, 3.5% the second year, and then it goes in. Now, that's also a sign of the times that probably in a good year or two, we might be in worse times than we thought. I remember back in 06 and when houses weren't selling, we started doing like the rate buy downs as builders. We'd be like, your first year is going to be a 1% interest rate. And back then rates were 5 or whatever. So you got to be a little bit nervous, but fundamental. So let's dig in. We got a few more minutes. And the biggest reason I wanted to have you on here was because as you were talking about your book, I was thinking that sounds perfect for some of our listeners right now. So what are some of the fundamentals on there? What's your book called, and what are the values that someone is going to get if they go buy it?
Okay, well, it's an easy read for one. The name of the book is 8 Ways to Dominate Any Real Estate Market. And we really focus on just some simple key things. A couple of things is basically who and how do you market, right? So, Aaron, proximity, right? When we were on that boat for 2 weeks, or in Croatia for 2 weeks, we were proximity. I mean, there's some deals that will happen just out of the people that are there. Somebody might have something going. Somebody's going to invest in it. So the same thing in real estate, but on a real simple way, is we focus on teaching people to get a list of the top 50 people that they know, that trust them, and that would possibly refer them a transaction in a year. Okay. And, people that I didn't create this idea, but I borrowed it. It's called the Top 50 program. And when you have a top 50 list, these are your VIPs. Aaron, I've had the great pleasure of selling, over 6,000 homes in my career. There's no way I can have a relationship with those people that are really meaningful because, some of them were 36 years ago, right? But what I have found is I have generational sales, and the people that I've kept in touch with send me referrals, right? Just like when you sent me referrals. We were proximity and Go Abundance. We met, oh, you're in Phoenix, I got properties, and you gave me an opportunity. So being focused on this top 50 group, and I like to look at it like, if you remember going to the club in the 70s, there was always a line, and the people that could out, or 80s, 90s, even 2000s, right? To get to the front of the line is the key. And so you want somebody to open up and let you in. And that's how you treat these top 50 people in your life, where you're constantly just calling them up, communicating, maybe grabbing a coffee, maybe grabbing lunch, knowing what interests them. So if they're like, I got a Diamondback shirt on today. If they like Diamondbacks, you invite them to a game or send them some tickets or basketball or a concert, whatever it may be. You know everything about these 50 people that you can lean into. And again, it's not that expensive, and you're not trying to market to thousands of people you don't know, right? You're not buying online leads where you have to get 200 leads. In the book, I coined a term. It was called hopium. And it's basically like putting a needle into your arm when you're buying these internet leads, hoping you're going to get a return. That's what people do, right? They're like, oh, I'm going to spend my money over here to see if I get a return. And they find out that's a whole nother way of earning a living. So top 50 is one. One of the things that really came into my life, and I don't know where it originated because it's been around for a while, but it's just basically having a perfect week, being able to block out hours in your day and working on those items. Before, and I learned this, through my coach, always having coaches around you. So my business coach was Burl Workman, and he pounded me on the perfect week and what to do. Quit working with as many buyers, focus your time and effort to work on your business. And so today, if you look at my schedule, it's very regimented, right? I have, the different meetings I have each day, every week, they're meetings. Everything happens on the same time, the same rotation, very simple. And you create boundaries on when and how to work with people. That one thing in my life, like I told you, I had the best year of my life, but I think in the real estate space, I probably spent less than 20 hours a week working in real estate. And, every Friday I golf. We have this house up here in Flagstaff. That's kind of the goal, to get up here as much as possible. And we'd probably be up here more if Mila wasn't doing hockey and softball and all the things back in the Valley, But having, a perfect week set up, or what we call in the book an intentional week, because nobody's perfect, right? Those are a couple things that we, we share, accountability, we know Go Abundance is a big accountability group, but accountability equals love, right? It's about, you're really trying to help your team, keeping them accountable to their goals, not necessarily yours. You want to help people achieve and exceed what they're looking for in life. And if you do that enough, it all works out for everybody.
If you help people achieve their goals in their life, it's a good reminder of something that I used to do with my team, and I used to do with my employees and team members and things like that. And I haven't been doing as much, and so as I try to redo my plan of going from busy being in the weeds to reorganizing some stuff and trusting more team members to do different things, I hope it helps me to focus on that. To remember, if we're raising people up to accomplish their dreams, then they also want to run through brick walls for you when you're helping people accomplish their stuff. So the book, 8 Ways to Dominate Any Real Estate Market, by Nate Martinez and Sarah Michelle Bliss. I found it on Amazon. I'm going to go ahead and get a copy of that. Listeners, I hope you guys do too. Nate and I only got to talk today for 45 minutes, right, about what's going on out there. But Nate has seen a lot of different markets, very experienced. And what's awesome is we get to have a lot of fun and a lot of adventures together. And I found myself, there was 2 guys on our trip last week, and in my journal and my notes when I was leaving, I said, I want to be more like Nate and I want to be more like Kurt, because of the balance that they have in their businesses and their lives right now are what all of us should strive for. And so that's why I wanted to have Nate on here today, for him to share just a piece of his advice with you guys. But I really want to encourage you guys to, spend the $10, get the book, spend a few hours reading it, especially because right now, Nate's advice of what do we do in a weird market like this? We focus on the fundamentals and take it from a guy like Nate that has seen a whole bunch of different markets. So I've seen some crazy markets, right? Like I got into real estate in 2005. And my dad was a developer in the 80s, and I got to see what it was like to be doing well as a developer and then lose it all, right? And then the projects that were working out and high interest rates to crash inflation that then crush developers and crush the economy. And then I've seen a housing market, so I've seen some stuff. So there gets my advice, and then Nate's been doing it twice as long as I have. So Nate, this was awesome. It was just fun to see you the last couple of weeks and getting to chat with on here. Any last final thoughts? And then how can people reach out to you? Because I know they can get your book. So Ways to Dominate Any Real Estate Market, 8 Ways to Dominate Any Real Estate Market. They're going to get your book. But if they want to reach out to you for extra questions, there's probably some people in Phoenix that want to learn more about these pods that you're doing for your offices. What's final thoughts and best ways for people to find you?
Okay, a final thought. One of the things I want to do is do a shout out to Sarah. Sarah was a girl that came to our office 25 plus years ago, and she was wearing a red dress, right? And she wanted to join my team. I didn't have a spot for my team, and Sarah didn't go away. Sarah's been a lifelong friend. I look at her as a sister, and she's the one that wrote the book with me. And while we were writing the book, we realized there needs to be another guide, right? I told Sarah, we need a journal. So we did create a journal, and a shameless plug. It's like the Bible, right?
Oh, awesome.
This is a whole year journal that is all based around real estate. And this one's titled Your Real Estate Journey to Abundance. And so, I think the basics, and that's what that journal's about. That's what we're running through our office right now, is taking people through that daily journal. And, some of the stuff came from Hal Elrod, right? And how you start your miracle morning, and it's just stuff that we've kind of taken that we've used in our life, and we just are putting back out there for people to utilize. I think people need something like this journey, this guidebook, if you will, to get through this next year or two in real estate, because it's going to be difficult. Again, having right people in your life. Aaron, one of the reasons I can take off, and I don't expect anybody to be able to have a team and do what I'm doing with travel and stuff and not being able to check in with work. I just have been blessed by building an amazing team. Sarah's been with me, even though she's not on my real estate team. She's part of my coaching team for my real estate company. I mean, Sarah's been with me over 25 years. My broker, Shannon's been with the company over 27 years. My right hand's been with me 14 years. I couldn't do anything without Christine. I mean, she does like everything, right? Counter offers, listing agreements. I mean, she just handles everything. So it's building the right team of people around you. As you know, as you're rebuilding with this new company, it all comes with trial and error. If somebody goes out and they're going to start a real estate team and they hire that first person, if that first person doesn't work out, most people stop there. That didn't work, right? They need to go back in, right? They need to go back in and try again. So the one thing about real estate, it's a people business. We just always have to be talking to people. And when you find good people, take care of them, because again, they'll take care of you. Some will leave and some won't, right? So I feel very blessed in my journey as a realtor, and anything I can do to help people. An open book. Best way to reach me on email is natem@remax.net. You can find me on Facebook. I have a couple of pages. We also have a page for the book as well. But if I can help in any way.
There's a Facebook page for the 8 Ways to Dominate Any Real Estate Market. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then Nate M at remax.net. That shows how long you've been in real estate, Nate. Because if you get the email Nate M, I'm sure there's lots more Nate M's that are part of.
My son took Nate Martinez at remax.net, and he gets a lot of referrals out of that.
He's like, no, I am Nate Martinez. Yeah. I'm the Nate. Well, Nate, thanks for being my friend. Thanks for being a mentor. Thanks for being a role model, and thanks for coming on here today. Real Estate Rockstars, I hope you reach out to Nate. I hope you read the book. So Nate, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, brother. I'm so honored, so appreciative.
Yeah. And Real Estate Rockstars, thanks for listening. Bye now.
All right, Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Muchastegui jumping in again to thank you for listening to the show. Hopefully you guys loved listening to that one. And I want to make sure that you know about all of the extra resources that we have. And also, we need your help. They say podcasts are free. You get to listen to podcasts for free. But what is the cost of that podcast? I would say if I could beg you to pay anything for that podcast, I would say the cost of the podcast is going and giving a review. So whether you download it on Google or Apple or YouTube or anywhere else, please go give us a review. Say what you liked, what you didn't like. It helps us get better guests. The more reviews, the higher we get in the rankings. Right now, we are the biggest podcast out there for real estate agents, and we want to keep that spot because we know there's lots of podcasts out there. So go give us a review. Also, be sure to go to hibandigital.com. If you liked any of the resources that those real estate agents talked about, we've got a huge video vault of those resources for free. Every penny that comes on the podcast that we interview, they give us something that helps them get their deals or helps them work with their clients. And we put that in the toolbox in our vault for you. So go to hibandigital.com and you can get it. If you're looking for real estate education, go to rebusuniversity.com. We have all sorts of courses in there to help agents succeed in real estate, how to get the listing, how to negotiate deals, how to become an investor, all sorts of different stuff, rebusuniversity.com. And if you want to chat with me, go find me on Instagram. And if you come find me on Instagram, you can send me messages. Tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. We try to put a bunch of content out there too. You can find me in two different places. It's at rerockstars.com for our Real Estate Rockstars page, or at aaronandmuchastegui.com for my personal Instagram page, where I can chat with you about all sorts of different things. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again soon.